Hi, I'm Robyn Yack,
I'm Cheryl Koffman, and we're from Robyn and Cheryl Real Estate.
and this is the S.M.E. Stories Podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E. Stories Podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
All right, guys, we have Robyn and Cheryl, a repeat guest here on the podcast. How you guys doing?
Great, we're excited to be here.
Excited to be back?
Excited to be back.
Yes. So for the listeners who remember the other previous episode that you guys were on, which was a blast, actually, we talked about wine, apparently, in terms of that, and sense of humor and stuff. And I believe, was it Cheryl? Well, you're the one that having trouble with the screen, so we had you like all
Right.
audio.
Exactly.
So
Yay.
we'll put that reference in the show notes there. So guys, I mean, I'm gonna normally I'd say, what's your story, but we already kind of talked about that. What's your new venture? What do you want to talk about today?
So we have a lot of things that have happened since we last spoke. So I think we're going to touch on the book that we collaborated on and the summit that we hosted, and a new venture that we just recently are heading into, very, very new, that does flow into our divorce clients, but expands it to other clients as well. And that's a whole rent-to-own option.
Oh, that's great. So where do you guys want to start? You guys want to start with a book? I mean, that's obviously a really big deal. Not many people can say they've written a book. So, okay, Robyn and Cheryl, what's the book story?
Here's the book. It's called The Ultimate Divorce Game Plan: What Every Woman Should Know, How to Navigate and Empower Yourself. So this was actually a couple years in the making. We've been part of a mastermind divorce group with a bunch of different professionals who focus on divorce. And we decided to come together and write a chapter in this book. And so we're representing the real estate. There's a mediator. There's a few divorce coaches / grief coaches. There's an accountant. So there's a lot of information in here that will help women at any stage of the divorce process, whether they're contemplating it, whether they've already started it, or whether they're on the path. And we're very proud of it. It's an easy read. You can read any chapter, or you can read it from cover to cover.
And it has a lot of good resources in the back as well. So in the back, it has connections to because we work with a lot of the women third-party professionals in the book. So if you go to the back, it has everyone's information, description, contact, as well as other, good connections, helpful connections.
Yeah. And one other key thing is the profits that we are making from it. Our goal is to put that money back into providing books to shelters. There's a lot of women who are in shelters who can't afford to buy. I mean, the book is not an expensive book. It's on Amazon. But we want to be able to get this knowledge out to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to access it.
No, that's a great cause, and it's unfortunate that women have to go through that. And just divorce is obviously it's a very sensitive topic, regardless, with men, women, whatever you want to take. So what got you guys into this? Like, did someone just reach out to you in general to say, hey, we're doing this divorce guide, and we don't have like a real estate piece. You guys are the experts. How did it come about? Did you reach out to them? They reach out to you?
So we do a lot of networking, and
Yeah.
as part of our networking, we have built up a big group of collaborators that are in this industry. And there was one, the accountant, Shailene McInnes, who she wrote a book previously helping women going through a divorce and how to prepare them financially, like all the steps to take to make sure that they're independent and able to take the next strides. And she really wanted to do this. And when I heard about this, I was totally on board. And so together we brought the people that we knew together to bring this book to life.
No, I mean, That's great, because I think it's like an all-in-one manual thing, and it hits all the different features. Because I know when we talked about the last episode, it was strictly mainly about real estate, right? You know,
Hmm.
buying, selling properties, then going through a divorce and that type of stuff. But I guess what people forget is that there's all these other things that you have to really keep in mind. It's not just, okay, what do we do with the property, but what about the finances, and what about, you know, what about like grief counseling too, especially if it's something where one partner wants the divorce, no one, and they're served with divorce papers, and let's say they don't even want to, but they're kind of going through that whole thing. Okay, how do I kind of get over from the emotional side too, and stuff like that? Do they have something there with, do they have something there for family? Do they have like a family attorney in that book as well, or something to deal with like when there's kids involved, or hey, pets as well?
Not pets, but definitely children.
So I can tell you right now, like if I tell you now, if Mrs. K and I ever do so, which knock on wood we don't, I definitely admit that she can definitely have the cats.
Yeah, but that's a
Because
good
they're both staring
idea.
at me. The cats are staring at me right now, trying to get in, and I'm trying to say no. So that's,
I love it.
I'm kidding, but
We'll keep that in mind for the second edition.
well, you know what?
It's
Because
true.
it's funny. Like when sometimes in my social media feed, I'll see a lot of, the problem is when you watch you watch something on one little video on social media, all the algorithms point to
Right.
5 more videos of the same thing. So a lot of it is, let's say if I see like a rescue dog or cat that's been rescued at a shelter, and that's great. But then everything goes on there,
I
and then
know.
next thing you know, it's like, oh, I can't do it, because otherwise I have to start saying that, yeah, please, not interested. Otherwise, it'll be flooding my thing, and then the next thing you know, I'll be the crazy cat guy with like 40 cats in the house, because your heart definitely goes out to the house. And some people,
For
that
sure.
could be a big determining factor. Like that might even be the biggest fight they might have, is, let's say, with a family dog or the family cat, because they love it so
Yeah.
much. But anyways, enough about pets and this whole thing. So you said this is a 2-year progress in there, and how was the actual experience writing it? Was it really easy? Did you have, times where you're like, okay, how much, like, what for your chapter, like how big is your specific section
So
of the book?
our chapter is actually quite small. All the chapters
Okay.
are pretty tight.
Okay.
Robyn and I, because we do so much work on divorce and real estate, it was very natural for us to write this and try and include as much information as possible in a very, what is it, Robyn, like 7 or 8 pages in total.
Yeah.
But again, our contact is in there, so if people have more questions or they need more information, they can always reach out to us. And some
Okay.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good about the book is every chapter is actually very simple and not too in depth. It was to give everybody the flavor and to focus on the key things. But then if they want, they can always reach out to any of all of the contact information for everybody is in there.
Man, the question to me is, how come there's not more books like this where you have different experts writing a chapter on a specific topic, right? Because always, like, it's, for the books that I've seen, it's always been like the one thing for everything, where that the writer might just be very specialized in one particular niche, and then they might be not as accurate when they try to speak on other topics, which is so the norm. But in this case, it's like, wow, you have experts in everything. So there's, it's almost like what you can really expand on in your section, and you stay in your lane, and you're not going to comment on other things that you have an idea of, or maybe you think might be a good idea, but leave it to the experts. So then you won't get that many critics to say, well, Robyn and Cheryl, they don't know what they're talking about outside of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, that's why we wrote just the real estate part of it, because
Exactly.
we have experts in everything else.
Right.
That
And then
speak to that.
we each read either the entire book or certain chapters just to make sure things didn't overlap, or that they did seem to be succinct, and that people weren't going into each other's lanes.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
so how hard was it to, like you said, you wrote about 7-8 pages of that chapter. How hard was it to figure out, okay, what to include and what not to include? Because I'm sure you guys have been doing this for a long time. So like you said, your chapter alone, you could probably write just a book by itself if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
So how did you narrow it down?
I think what we did is we focused on our most frequently asked questions. So I think, because we've been doing this for a long time, we've worked with a lot of divorcing couples. We just focused on the things people want to know. One realtor versus two realtors. What's a matrimonial home? What if my name's not on title? All of those sort of questions that we always get asked. We thought we would touch a little bit on each of those questions. And then again, if people needed more information, they could contact us. But we just kind of touched on a little bit of everything that we get asked every week, all the time.
Wow. So that's pretty cool. So 2 years. So who did the bulk of the writing? Robyn or Cheryl? Which one took more? Or you literally
I think
did
we
it together?
both
We're a very
did.
good team.
Yeah.
Good.
We work together really well. So, which is why we're a team.
Have you ever watched Frasier?
Yes. A long time ago. Yeah.
Long time ago. There was one episode there where Frasier and Niles had to try to create a book on brotherly bonds and relationships, and it ended up into fighting in a hotel room.
That was
Never
not
saw
us.
that
wasn't
one.
the case.
That was
You
not
definitely
us.
gotta watch.
That
That's
was
not you?
not us.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever actually had a fight about anything. So
No.
we're
usually
very much
very
on the
in
same
sync.
page. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm not saying that I want you to get into a fist fight, but
No.
it's so in sync because, like, I'll make this story really quick. Is that, one time we'll be, regardless of any of the issues, whether it's politics, religion, child rearing, or anything, Mrs. K and I, we've been together since we celebrate our 20th year of being together this past January, because we got married in 2009, but we've been together since December of 2004. And
Nice.
one time we were just chatting one time, we're like, I'm really surprised. We've never had a really big argument, or we've always kind of agreed on the same thing, right? Because, I think we're getting to the point now, we're starting to know family and friends who are now, unfortunately, getting a divorce or going through the separation
Right.
process. And we're just like, how did we get so lucky in
Yeah.
terms of that? Because we wanted to raise a child. We're doing it the same way. We have no, or at least we visualize, at least to the kids, we're agreeing. And then if we don't agree, we just speak outside where the kids aren't there. But no, that's a very interesting,
You're
thought
lucky.
there.
You're lucky.
Yes,
I've been
so.
married. I'm going into, this year will be my 30th year
Oh,
being
wow.
married this August. And, we got lucky. That's what I say to people.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I made I'll make this last before we continue with your book here. Because I said I was a best man at a wedding one time. And I said, okay, the best advice I said was pick your battles, right? If she wants certain curtains, assuming they're not ugly, just go for it.
Right.
If she wants to do something like, she wants to paint the room a different color, you may not like it, but you know what? Let her have it.
Right.
If for some reason she says she doesn't want you to watch WWE wrestling anymore, deal breaker.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Pick your battles.
Pick your battles is the most important thing. So, okay. So now that's great. So we're talked about the book, which is great. And it's on sale right now on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. Are you guys going to be doing any, so you said you created just this one chapter. Have you guys thought about actually writing a full-blown book of multiple chapters of it?
We haven't talked about it yet, but it's something for the future. We also deal a lot with bankruptcy too now. And divorce and bankruptcy often go hand in hand. So that's another area that we sort of specialize in now. We work with a lot of bankruptcy lawyers and trustees and things. So again, not a normal sale for a property. There's a lot of details involved, and that's something we specialize in as well. So if we're going to do a book like that, we probably would include both of those things, plus the new thing that we're doing right now, which is rent to own, which we will talk about.
You want to talk about that now? Let's talk about it now.
Sure.
Okay.
So give the listeners of rent to own, because I'm sure people have said, oh, you've seen it on some clothing stores or some other retail shops that just rent to own. Explain from the real estate side, what is rent to own to the listeners?
So we're actually rent-to-own certified specialists with a company called Clover Properties. They've been in business around 15 years. They've been doing this. And basically, it is exactly what it sounds. You're renting to own something in, let's say, 2 to 4 years from the time you start the process. It's very good for people who, can't go the normal route, can't get a mortgage from a bank. It's too expensive, let's say, to get a mortgage from a private mortgage, and they still want to put their foot into home ownership. So it's great for people who have gone through bankruptcy, who have gone through consumer proposal. It's great for students who have student loans and don't have a long job history. It's great for people with low credit, for people who are new to Canada, waiting for their permanent status, let's say. It's also good for people who are self-employed and can't really show consistent income, which are all the things that the banks want. So this is an alternative for people who can't go, the classic route of going to a bank and getting a mortgage. And it's funny, when we have listings and put signs up, we always get calls from people saying, is there any way to rent to own this property? So you'd be surprised how many people are actually interested in this kind of, doing this kind of thing. So that's basically who it's good for. You have to qualify with this company, and to qualify, really what you need is sort of like a high, not high, but like an 80,000 plus sort of combined yearly income. And you need about a 4% to 5% down payment.
So walk me through this. So you need at least about 80K income,
combined. So
right?
yeah,
Combined
you and your
income.
spouse, let's say, yeah.
And then you apply through here. So we have 80 grand in income, and that 4%.
Yeah.
So is that up? You have to pay that up front to say?
Yeah. So you are
Is it
paying that
dependent
up
on the
front.
property, or is it just?
So how the process works is, you'd contact us. We put you through sort of like we hook you up with this company. They go through a qualification process, and
Okay.
again, part of the qualification process is needing sort of 80,000 plus in income. Their average client has somewhere between 80 to 160,000 in income, and able to have about 4 to 5% of a down payment. And then what they do is they hook you up with an investor. So they have these amazing investors they work with who really want to help people get into home ownership. So this investor works, with the rent to own buyer, and they basically help you purchase the property. And in 2 to 3 years, so what you do is you make payments like rent. So part of the payment goes to the investor, and part of the payment is like a forced savings to build up your down payment. So when the 2 to 4 years is done, so let's say you started with $15,000 down payment, now you might have $30,000 or $35,000 down payment. So at the end of the process, you own the home and you're able to qualify for that bank mortgage because they've helped to build up your down payment. They've helped to build up your credit during that time. What they're really doing is buying people time.
They're making you mortgage ready.
Yeah, making you mortgage ready. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how does that?
And one of the things that's also very important to note. So first of all, the rent to own buyer chooses the house. So they can choose the house based on their spending limit that Clover Properties allows. So they choose the house. It's not a house that or a condo or a specific building. It's whatever house they choose. And then today, when the investor buys the property, there's another agreement that states the purchase price of the house 3 to 4 years down the road. So you're setting the purchase price now for later, which ends up being most of the time under market value.
Right.
Because
you're setting the price ahead of time. Because normally people don't like to do that. They want to make sure that they want to know what's the price, what's it's worth today. Right. So they don't plan on that. Okay.
Right. And then the other addition is the other benefit to the owner is if the buyer, the rent to own buyer, does any updates to the house, landscaping, changing the kitchen or anything, they benefit from that increased value. Right? Because the price of purchase is set 3 or 4 years down the road. It doesn't include any of those updates. So
it's at that present time. It's at the time of purchase. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
So what they're doing is building automatic equity in the property so that when you take it over in, let's say, 2 to 3 years, there's already equity built in because they've priced it slightly lower than market value. And like Robyn says, any additions you put in, upgrades, improvements, you're also getting that equity in the property. So you've got some built-in equity after those 2 to 3 years. So someone could turn around after 3 years after owning this property and sell it, right?
But
You
they'll
own
get
it
a higher
now,
price for it if
Yes.
they
but they'll
wanted
get a
to.
higher price for it. Exactly. So it's a really great alternative for people who can't do things in the regular way, we'll call it.
Hmm.
And the other thing that we didn't mention is that the rent-owned buyer does not pay the closing costs. The investor does. So,
Okay.
you always need that extra, let's say $10,000 to $12,000 to close, lawyer
Yeah, to
fees,
close it.
all of the fees, closing fees. You don't need that. So really what you do need is that 4% to 5% down payment, and they have you pay that down payment because they want you to have skin in the game.
Right.
So
Yeah,
now
I think
you've
that
made an
that that
investment.
that's one of
Yeah,
the most important things, right?
yeah,
Because
Right.
yeah,
if it's all on the investor to
correct.
front all this cost and you got nothing, you're just paying the actual, monthly
Monthly
payments or
fee.
just
Yeah,
that thing. It's like, no, you got to put a little bit in there, right?
Right.
Because
Exactly. You have to have a little
my
skin
help
in the
skin
only
in the
game.
game.
goes so far,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because
But you need to have skin
Right.
in the game, right? Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
and
And it's a commitment. I mean, it's a commitment. People, they want people to, I mean, you've got your down payment now in there, your 4 to 5%, and they want people to commit to do those payments until it's time for them to buy out in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So it
okay,
really is a commitment. And I think part of the qualification process is to make sure that they feel, you're committed to the process as well. The
yeah.
investor's committing, they want you to commit as well.
Right.
So we talked about who this is kind of for. Who
Hmm.
would this
There's
situation not be really good a good fit for?
Well, one thing there's
Oh,
one other person that we didn't mention that this is good
Oh,
for is the millennials. So a lot of
ah,
millennials who feel or can't get into the market right now, some of the parents are having to help them out. So in this
mhm.
particular way, if the parent has the 4 to 5% down, they don't have to put up so much money as they would
hmm.
otherwise have to, and it allows the millennial to get into the market and then buy it today at today's price, as opposed to waiting, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to wait and I'm going to try and save up the money in 3 4
Right.
years, right? But then the cost of the houses are going to be higher, all that much higher in 3 to 4 years. So you're better off, the earlier you can get into the market, the better you are. So that's another
So you asked, you know, like who would this be good for, or kind of what kind
Yeah.
of person? Like, so we're working right now with, two girls in their 20s. They're sisters, and they're just starting out in the workforce. They don't have a long job history, and they don't have a long credit history, right? Because they're young. So what we would do is we would let them go to the bank or set them up with our mortgage agent first to see what they can qualify for. And if they can't qualify, then this would be a second option for them. I mean, we've just been looking at rents in the downtown core of Toronto, 2 bedroom condos. Those condos are going for $3,000 to $4,000 a month. I mean,
Yowza.
if you're going to put your money into that, you might as well own something at the end of that two to
Well,
three
yeah.
years, right? So it's a really good option for people.
So I think yeah. So back to my another question then. So
Yeah.
who would this not be the perfect fit for? Because you said you made a lot of cases that it could be for almost anybody. But is there any situation that maybe if you're a person looking to get into the market that maybe this is not the right one for you? So people level set their expectations, right? So right now we have like 80K in income,
Right.
and stuff like that. Is there a situation where maybe it doesn't work for them?
Well, I guess if you don't have enough income and you don't
Okay.
have anything set aside for down payment, it's not the program for you. You're going to need to take a little bit more time, to build up on your own. Conversely, if you're a person who makes a high income and has a good 20-25% down payment, you wouldn't need this either, right?
Okay,
You
so
can
if
just
you
go to a
have
regular bank or mortgage agent and do it on your own.
no,
So,
that's a great point, and I'm
yeah.
glad you brought that up, Show. So
Hmm.
if you don't have the money for it, but that
Yeah.
then maybe this wouldn't fit. Or if you do have the 20
yeah.
25%,
Yeah.
then rent to own isn't it? Unless you're one of those things that you plan on staying in the country for a few years and then you plan to go back to your home and then maybe you sell it, but you don't want to go through the I don't know if that really works, but that could be
Yeah,
something else
some
that you
people
could
don't want to go
Right.
through the process. The other nice thing about this company is that for people new to Canada, so they have no job history, and they have no credit history, right? And a lot of them are waiting for permanent status. And we know that with the backlog, permanent status can take 1 year, 2 years to get. What's
Right.
nice about this company is that they will put them through the process and let them move into a home while they're waiting for their permanent status,
When
which
a
is nice
mortgage,
for people.
right? Because
Yeah,
a mortgage company will not grant a mortgage to somebody who doesn't have
yeah.
permanent status.
So who would this name be under? Because you said would this be under the investor's company name that would be quote unquote owning the mortgage for it?
So the investor, either in his personal or however the investor wants to have the deal set up, they're the ones who purchase the property on day one. But then
Okay.
there's another agreement between the investor that Clover
And the
Properties
buyer.
puts together and the tenant, the buyer tenant, that outlines the whole process and fees and all that, and the purchase price down the road.
Okay. Is there anything that the tenant buyer cannot do to the property? Right? Because obviously you said if they would do their own landscaping, if they wanted, is there certain exceptions that they can't do anything? Because I guess to some people they're like, when you think of a tenant generally, you're like, okay, I'm renting out this place. There are certain things I can't do, right? I cannot demolish
Right.
the
You're
kitchen,
totally right.
right?
That's the
So
beauty of it, so that you actually own this place in 2 to 3 years. So you actually have the freedom to paint in your own color. You don't need to ask for permission. You can actually change the light fixtures and drapes. You don't need to ask for permission. And Clover Properties puts people in houses that are move-in ready. They don't want to put extra stress on the rent-to-own buyer that they have to now
renovate.
renovate and need to improve the property. This is a property that's it's going to be in good shape. This is not a fixer-upper that they're putting them in.
No, they always,
Right.
it's mandatory to have a home inspection and an appraisal so that everybody knows what they're getting into. There's no
Exactly.
surprises.
I'm just going. Unless you have a tenant who's also a general contractor, they might want that little bit of fixer upper if he wants. But I guess that'll be determined between.
Yeah.
But typically, that's not generally what you'd be for. Be
Exactly.
move in ready. I'm not going to be going to you guys. I'm like, I got my sledgehammer ready. Where can I?
Yeah,
hit?
exactly.
Right, exactly.
The investor might not like that at the
Yeah,
beginning.
exactly.
No.
Yeah.
No. And so for the investors itself, so Cloverfield Properties, they align. So how big is the investor pool? Is it like one
They have
company or
150.
150? Okay.
No, they're actually private family investors. These are actually families who have some money, want to invest, and want to help somebody get their foot into the market. It's actually, it's actually personal first before it's about the money in the business. These people really want to help someone, and they're vetted obviously very well through the company. And they're all private investors. I think Robyn, they said they have over 150 private investors. So there's often multiple people who want to help out with each deal.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem finding an investor. Usually there's several that want to.
Yeah. And
be
some
part of it.
investors invest in multiple properties.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing. So I guess it kind of goes to the vetting process there. So where can listeners reach out to you guys?
They can find us on our website at Robyn and Cheryl.com. Robyn with a Y and Cheryl with a Y. Or
And Cheryl with a C.
Cheryl
Everyone
with a
spells it
C,
with an
yes,
S.
that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Or on Instagram or Facebook at Robyn and Cheryl Real Estate, or they can reach us by email. Robyn Yack at gmail.com and C. Koffman
at rogers.com.
.com.
Well, awesome, guys. Thanks for being on the show. It was a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us back.
Hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.